All right. All right, everyone. Thank you. Recording started. All right. Thanks, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. Looks like I got people all over the place, so it could be morning. It's 10 a.m. on the West Coast here. So we're going to get started. Thanks for joining us today. Really excited to do this. So I'll just introduce myself really quickly. My name is Keith Hawken. I am the Senior Director of Sales and Marketing at Top Producer. I've actually been part of Top Producer for almost 20 years. So a lot of history here. My goal today is we have a pretty action-packed session. It's going to be a little bit fast and furious, but really to kind of give you, some things that you probably already know, but also get you thinking about things that maybe you can implement, ultimately to help you grow your business, right? At the end of the day, I want you to be successful. We want you to be successful, whether we can help you or not. At the end of the day, we want you to be successful. So we're going to go through this today. The topic is the 3 ingredients of long-term success in real estate, and let's get started. If you have questions, please type them into the chat or the Q&A. We will try and answer them all. With that being said, let's begin. So the first thing that I always love to do is kind of take a step back. So before we talk about what do we need to do to be successful and what can we do to, sell more houses and help people, achieve their dream, is really understanding, where does our income come from today, right? What channels work? Where does our GCI ultimately come from? The gross commission income. So, this is actually a couple of years old, this data, but I still think it really speaks to the fact that regardless of all the change that's happening, look, real estate is changing. It is one of the rapidly changing industries, whether how people buy and sell homes, to how they find homes, to the whole entire transaction. There's a lot going on and a lot of change happening in the industry. But the one thing that still, to me, that really matters the most is all of the business that comes from that left side. Referrals, sphere, repeat business, those are the areas that still drive the lion's share of our business. And one of the things that we have to remember is this is still a belly-to-belly business. Yes, technology is changing, the model is changing. One thing it hasn't changed is that relationships matter, and your database is the most important asset that you have, right? But it is only the most important asset depending on how you use it. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of how do we, grow our business? What are some things that we need to be doing today to help us achieve more? Where can I find that next listing? Where can I find that next buyer? So that's what we're going to talk about today. The one thing that I'm a real true believer in is for you to build a strong business, you need to have a recipe for success, right? You can't do, I kind of break it up into 3 things that a real estate agent needs to do. You need to build your business. You need to build your database. You need to service your client, right? You need to service those people, and you need to nurture them, right? If you do one of those things without the others, it'll not work. If you only focus on building, where you're just constantly adding new people and meeting new people, but you're not doing a great job on the service side, or you're not good at nurturing people, it doesn't matter how many people you have in your database, right? Same thing is if you don't have enough people in your database or enough people to talk to, it doesn't matter if you're really great at nurturing, right? And then those 2 things lead into the middle, right? You gotta build and nurture people so you have people to service and for people to help. And so these things are all connected. And the one thing that I really think about is, what does this look like from a real estate agent? What should your breakup be? And this is just my own opinion. So I'm not saying this is what it's going to be for all of you, but I really think that you have to do all of these things. And the big one is, is really focusing on the build side a little bit, right? 20% of your time should be acquiring new people, meeting new people, lead generation, all those things. 50% of your time is spent servicing your clients. Look, today, the real estate market is crazy busy. I bet you right now, you're probably spending 70 to 80% of your time focusing on servicing, the people that you have right now. It's a tough time out there for buyers and sellers. I know, I just went through selling and buying, and it was not a pleasant experience. And so, it's going to shift as the market shifts. But the one thing that you can't forget is if you don't do all of these things, this is what your income is going to look like. And I'm sure when I show you this, right, this is like right now we're at the peak right now, right? Real estate's hot. There's lots going on. We're so focused on what we have in front of us that we sometimes forget about, hey, where's my commission check going to come from six months from now? Where's it going to come from a year from now? Where's it going to come from 2 years from now? Because we're so focused right now on what's in front of us. And if we don't think about those things in the future, this is what our income looks like. We have these huge peaks and valleys, and this road isn't really showing, the magnitude of what those peaks and valleys can look like. I'm sure for some of you, it looks like, in between two mountain peaks, right? We get up there, we have an awesome time, and then all of a sudden, all of a sudden you can go a while without a transaction. And so the idea of what we're going to talk about today is to really be like, okay, what are some things that you can do to make sure that you're still building your database, that you're still effectively to service your clients, and that you're able to nurture people. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And with that being said, let's get into the strategy. So the first thing that I kind of talked about and I've alluded to is you need to have a database. If you like, this is a foundation. A database is your most important asset. Okay, that's step one. The next thing that really matters is what you do it. And the one thing is, I'm sure there's many of you watching today where you have hundreds, thousands of people that are in your database, whatever your database is, right? If you use Top Producer, you use Google, whatever it is that you use, right? You probably have hundreds or thousands of people in there. The most important thing that matters is not how many people you have. It's what you do with those people, right? And so one of the best things that you can do to build your business is to reach out to people in your database. And the one thing that I would always say, and this is really comes back to the foundation, is don't be afraid. I'm a true believer in the power of saying hi. If you have leads, past clients, sphere, expireds, FSBOs, whatever it is that you do in your business that you find new business, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and say hi. What is the worst thing that can happen by picking up the phone and just saying hi? A quick story about this. I just mentioned to you all that I just went through buying and selling over the last 3 months. That happened because my realtor, who we were working with a year ago, reached out and said hi. He said, "Hey, Keith, think we should talk. Things have changed since we last talked," which was about a year ago. And he pretty much convinced us that now was the time for us to pick up, sell, and buy. All because he reached out and said hi. And then he had value. So the thing is if you have all these names, all these email addresses, all these people, how do you find out who's ready to buy and sell, or who might be a prospect for that if you don't call them and talk to them and share your value and share? I'm sure, depending on where everyone is, I saw people from North Texas. I've seen, wherever everyone's watching from today, there are people in your contact list right now that are either considering buying and selling or know someone who's considering buying and selling. You need to find them. So first tip, just make the call. Don't come up with reasons why you can't make the call. Pick up the phone, say hi. The more times you say hi, the more opportunity you're going to get. So it's probably one that, it's like, gosh, you came to this webinar for this, but this is just a really important thing in my mind. Okay, moving on. The next one is, have a database. Make sure that you can sort through your database. I mentioned off the top, you have things like past clients, sphere, leads, expireds, FSBOs. Spend time every day reaching out to those different segments. Don't just do one and say, oh, I'm just going to call all my past clients. That's great, but don't forget about those leads that you've been collecting. I'm sure a bunch of you have a bunch of leads in your contact list right now that are dusty because you haven't followed up with them in a while, right? Reach out to them. What's the worst that can happen? But make sure you have an approach and an organized system to make this easy. So another thing too is just think about segmenting people by who they are and thinking about the best way to reach out to those people. So I mentioned just make the call. The next part is make sure that you're segmenting people and focusing on different segments, either during the day, during the week. Maybe on Mondays it's your past client follow-up, maybe on Tuesdays it's your sphere, maybe on Wednesdays it's lead follow-up, however you do it. Okay, next one is you should always be capturing. I like to call this ABC. Everyone is an opportunity. So for you to have people to talk to, you have to build up your contact list. Obviously, like some basic things. Everyone probably here has a website. You all have social media. You probably all do open houses, right? Some of you may invest heavily in lead gen. You should always be capturing, right? Where's that next name in your database going to come from? How many people are you adding to your database on a weekly basis? So those are some things that you should really ask yourself. If you look at yourself this week, all of you should ask yourself this: how many people, new names, I like to say this, new names, how many new names have you added to your business this week? Is it 0? Is it 5? Is it 10, 100? Do you know the answer to that question? Right? What do you need, right? You always have to be adding new people to your business, wherever you get them from. There's so many areas, and we're not going to talk about all the different channels. That's not what this is about. But when we think about how do you build, you should always be capturing and set some goals for yourself. If you want to sell X amount of homes in the next 12 months, how many people do you need in your database so that you can, and then what's the conversion rate of those people to get there? So just think about that. You should always be capturing, always be adding people to your system. One way that I think is really effective, and this is not a social media session. I think that social media is if done correctly, social media can be a really powerful platform for you to share your expertise. People don't go on Facebook to be sold products and services. They don't. But what they do go on Facebook is to check in on what their friends, family, and people are doing and look up information. My Facebook use has shifted. I participate in a lot of different groups, which are amazing, with discussions around, all types of different things. I hate to say it, Facebook Marketplace has become my favorite place to buy and sell goods. It's the new garage sale, I like to call it. But think about the audience on Facebook, right? What can you share that people are looking for? What are challenges that buyers and sellers face in today's real estate market that you can share your expertise? Those are things that you can really think about as you're going there. Is Facebook is a platform to share. Social media is a platform to share. Instagram, Facebook, I'm not going to go through all the names, but it's a platform where you can share and offer value. And if you want to think about, how do you build and capture people, think about something like a landing page around, right now, I don't know about you, I'm sure all of you are facing the same thing, real estate's tough for buyers and sellers right now. Let me rephrase that. Real estate is really tough for buyers. It's absolutely amazing for sellers, right? And I hope that's the same in your market. So this is such an opportunity for you to share your expertise. And there's an article that was just posted in the chat if you're on Zoom around, some ways that you can use this for Facebook. But Facebook, just if you think about it, set up some landing pages. I am willing to give you my email, my name and email address if I'm going to get something of value. What is your value? So think about that. If you're just trying to, say, hey, I'll help you buy a house, that's not what people need right now. What people need to know is, how do I buy a house? How do I navigate this crazy real estate market as a buyer? How do I deal with the fact that a lot of homes, and I don't know if any where you guys are, but a lot of homes have 10, 20, 30 offers. How do we navigate that? That's what people need to know. And so think about that as when you want to build an audience and make those people come into your funnel, what value and what can you help them with? What's the problem they're facing today? So just another one. The other thing too, a lot of you may generate leads. Okay, so you can buy leads. There's so many sources of companies out there that will sell you leads. There's the portals, there's these website companies. I mean, everywhere, anywhere, there's leads. I personally don't think we have a lead generation problem. To be honest with you, I think we have a lead conversion problem, right? Which is, there's a lot of buyers and sellers online. You can get names. Money can go a long way in doing that. Where you're going to generate the most return, though, is in your process. So don't just build and add people. How are you communicating with them? Are you communicating quickly with them? If you invest in Zillow or Realtor.com or any of the portals, and someone inquires on a property and says, hey, I'm interested in 1234 Main Street, how quickly are you making that first impression, right? Make sure that as you're going down this path to build, that you have processes in place to help you ultimately, respond quickly and efficiently. And obviously text is a huge one today for communication, especially with the millennials and even Gen Xers out there. So, and I would say with everybody. So just think about that as we move forward. Okay, the last one too. Just remember that everyone in your database is a person. These are people. They're not names. They're not email addresses. They're not phone numbers. These are people. These are people who have jobs. These are people who live in certain cities. These are people who have potentially families, kids, spouses, all that stuff. They have interests. Some might like to golf. Some might not like to golf. Some might like the beach. Some might not. Some might travel. Some might not. You know, some might read a book, read. Some people don't. Just remember that when you're interacting with them, these are people, and they're not just a name in your database. And also know that like social media is an amazing way to understand who they are. And an example of that is if you use our top producer CRM, if some of you have seen this, every single one of your contacts in our system has a social profile, if we can find them online, where you can learn a little bit about who they are, links to their LinkedIn, their YouTube, their Twitter, and understand some things that they like. And maybe you'll see something, you know, it's awesome. Like if I was to follow up with this person, it's like, oh, they love sports. Well, I love sports. That's a mutual connection. And we can talk about sports. You remember when I said, just say hi? It's amazing what you can find out, right? Just by saying hi. So think about how you can leverage social to understand a little bit more about who these people are and their interests. So moving on. Getting into the service side. So we're talking about building, you know, so the biggest thing is have a database, continue adding to it, and just make sure you're following up with people. Say hi, pick up the phone. Don't just rely on email and texting. People, you know, people want to hear from you. And think about all the different channels. So the next one is in the service area. You know, it kind of connects to what I just said. Just remember that your clients are people. They are your customer, and they need to be treated like that. So a couple of ways that we can really help you with service. First one is, you know, right now, the process of buying real estate is really challenging. You know, I just went through both sides of it. I had to buy and I sold, and all that happened in 10 days. It was the most stressful time I've ever been through. And I'm just sharing it from a consumer standpoint, right? But my realtor did an absolute amazing job helping us navigate through the waters. It was very, you know, structured approach. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He held our hands through this whole process. And that alleviated some of the stress that my wife and I were feeling as we were buying and selling at the exact same time, which was really challenging. And for both of them to close within 10 days of each other was also really challenging. But the one thing my realtor had was a process, and he was there the whole way on both sides, made sure that any questions we had, navigated the waters, worked with, you know, all the finance, all the stuff. Just he was, you know, I hate to say it, he was the coach, right? Navigating the team through this process. And just make sure, you know, as things get crazy, do you have a process and do you have the tools to help you stay organized and navigate the complexity of a transaction? And then multiply that by, you know, just the craziness in the market, right? How do things not get dropped? How do things not get forgotten? How do we stay on track to make sure we get to those, you know, escrow removal date? How do we just make sure that nothing is left for chance, right? As I said, my realtor, amazing. We did it all in 10 days. We were done. And it was because of our realtor, right? He kept the process flowing, working, you know, triaging between all the parties involved. I mean, it was amazing. And that's a really important thing, is that's what you know, when I think about, you know, my own experience, that's what I'm looking for a realtor to do, is they are professional, you know, at this, that is what you do. And it's super important. So just remember that there's so many variables involved, so many parties, and you're triaging really issues that come up often. So do you have a system and tool? Do you have a process in place to make sure that you deliver exceptional service every single time? You know, one thing that we've done really, and this is an area for focus for us, top producer, and I hope some of you, I know a bunch of your top producer customers, is build that process, execute the process. It's one thing for someone to say, I have a process. So every time I get a listing, this is what I do. Every time I get a buyer, this is what I do. It's another thing to execute it. So just make sure your execution is important. Make sure you have workflows set up. Use technology to help you automate some of the tedious stuff to keep you on task so that you can deliver an exceptional customer experience. Another one, when I think about, your database, how for you to effectively service people, you have to have, this is really elementary, and it's just something I have to say because I've seen it. An organized database is a profitable database. It's cliche, but we have helped tens and tens and tens and thousands of realtors, build their database with our system. And, a lot of you may have your contacts in Google or Excel or whatever basic, contact list you have. The most important thing you need is an organized one. Your database has to be organized. It also has to have real information. How can you service people if you have incorrect email addresses, you don't have the right phone number, you don't have all this information that you need? Kind of brings back to my point earlier. These are real people. They are, real people with jobs, with families, with, interests, right? They also have phone numbers and email addresses that are up to date, and it's really important you have it. But the other thing too is just make sure that you're segmenting. If you have 100 people in your database right now, those 100 people are not the same. Some are buyers, some are sellers, some are friends and family, some are renters, some are XYZ. You can't treat everyone the same. So the more organized your database is, the more that you can curate and focus and be relevant to the relevant audiences. Like right now, if you had amazing advice for buyers, you don't want to send it to 100 people. You want to send it to the 20 buyers in your database. Make sure that you can do that, right? So that's where an organized database is really important. The other thing too, is one thing you have to remember is, I'm going through this right now. I move in a week and a half, right? I mentioned this myself. You don't close a sale, right? You open a relationship. And I'm going to say something that's probably, you're going to be like, gosh, Keith, that's terrible. This is my third realtor for the 3 times I've bought and sold. I'm on realtor number 3. Do you think that is because the realtors prior to my current one did a terrible job? Nope. Absolutely amazing, right? But all of them have been great. No complaints about my realtors. Or do you think it is because those realtors just haven't been staying in touch with me? I've been in my current house for 7 years. It's the latter, right? Wasn't because, I didn't like my realtor and all that stuff. The fact is they just weren't there. They were invisible. They were there for like a little bit and then they disappeared. Right? So, just think about this as we move forward. Is we're going to talk a little bit more about how do you nurture people long-term, but this is really a critical component here, because those relationships are how you're going to build your business later on. Those people are going to be a source of transactions later on. They're going to be a source of referrals later on. So just think about that, this quote. It is really powerful when you think about it in that context. Because at the end of the day, repeats and referrals are critical to your success. I mean, I don't have to you all know this. I'm not sharing anything you don't already know. You know this, and it's super important, because it started off at the very beginning. If you remember that GCI chart. So I'm gonna pause for a minute. Dave, I think there's some questions here. I saw a question from Dave on Facebook. Dave says, why do we still not have auto email drip and task plan so fundamental to sales yet not implemented? Dave, you will have that in 2 weeks. So coming soon. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything else, and then we'll continue on here. There's lots of articles in the chat. Awesome. Okay, cool. You guys are doing great. One of my, I found this yesterday, right? And it kind of sums up a little bit of what we've talked about so far. We're gonna get into the nurture part right now, which is one of my favorite parts of this session. But it's just kind of this comic of, hey, Bill, our best customers are in outrage. They say you haven't heard from you in the last month. And it's kind of like, yep, I had to ignore them so I could focus on these new deals. I sure hope it pays off. Remember what I said at the very, very beginning. You might be spending 70, 80% of your time right now servicing people. Just make sure that you're not forgetting about all those other people while you do it, right? Do not risk losing all these other people because you're too busy with your current people. You have to balance it, right? The agents that are highly successful and have become top producers are the people that can navigate and do all those things at the same time. regardless of how many listings or buyers you have right now. Just remember, find that time. We're going to talk about that. Find that time every day to focus on those other people, right? So that you have business in the future. So, okay. Another one too. This is a perfect example of what I just talked about. You know, a bunch of you may have just sold your listings and they sold in days, right? You might just want to keep track of who they are, because the odds are, I hate to say it, they might be looking for a new realtor in 5 to 7 years. I mean, I just shared with you my own personal story, and I'm the most loyal person you'll meet. But if I haven't heard from you in a long time, it doesn't, to me, that just doesn't lead to long-term relationship, right? So something to think about, you know, put those people in there, put them in a corner of your system and think about them in a couple of years. You know, share, you know, the best way to build a relationship is share your value, share information with people. So I see a question in the chat here. I'm just going to answer it. Margaret asked, does Top Producer have the ability to utilize short codes to capture leads? So we don't ourselves have short codes, but if you use a short code platform, we can ingest leads from pretty much anything into Top Producer. So depending on what platform you use for the short codes, it would be dependent on that platform, whether or not we can, you know, do that. Okay, I'm going to keep moving along. All right, we're in the nurture section. This is going to be, so the next thing I want to talk about, okay, we talked about building and all the different things you need to think about how you build and add, and the fact that you need to continually add people to your database. We talked about service and how important it is. And, you know, I mentioned to you my most recent experience with my current realtor, and I think, you know, this is gonna be a long-term relationship. For me, the thing that impressed me the most was this level of service and just how he helped stick handle the really complicated process that we just all went through. But the big thing is, how do you get to that point, right? So I've got all these people, I've doing an awesome job on the service part, but how do I stay relevant? You know, Dave just asked me this question, you know, a little bit like, why, you know, why do we still not have auto emails, right? And, you know, that's just one mechanism of how we can nurture people long term. But at the same time, it's one thing to, you know, have automated emails. But if you just set it and forget it, and there's no thought put into it, this is what is going to happen to you. You're just going to become one of these 13,678 unread emails. So there's one thing to, you know, drip on people, and there's another thing to be really effective on how you drip on people. Those are two very different things, because I could sit back and say, gosh, I'm amazing. I have all these drip campaigns going out. But if no one looks at it, are you really getting the benefit, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about how do you cut through the noise? You know, how do you not end up with one of these, you know, 13,678 unread emails plus another 148 unread emails, right? How do we cut through the noise of, you know, that our clients see every day? So the first one is make it valuable to them, not you. You have to do this with them in mind. Whoever you're sending those automated emails to, it has to be built around what is it for them? What's in it for them? Why am I going to open that email, right? If we're doing it because, you know that you have to do it, and it's one of those things that, you know, it's like, gosh, I have to have drip email. It's just one of those things I have to have. I agree. Drip email can be super effective, but it can also not be effective at the same time, because it has to have an element of relevance and personalization. And so it's really, really important if you're embarking down this channel, it can be the greatest asset your business has if done correctly, right? If it's too promotional, people will delete it, and they're going to unsubscribe from you. The worst thing you want right now, with all the laws around privacy and unsubscribing consent, all that stuff, is for someone to unsubscribe from your emails, because the minute they unsubscribe from you, you cannot communicate with them anymore for free. So goal number one is to make sure that what you're sending is not too promotional, and they're going to unsubscribe. And I think that's a really, really important aspect. The other thing too is kind of goes back to a point I made earlier. Send content that answers questions based on where they are in the life cycle today, right? And I think like that is super important. You know, with buyers, like this comes back to segmenting. You have 100 people in your database. Do not send an email, the same email to those 100 people. If that is not going to work because it's not relevant. You need to send an email that is relevant to buyers. You need to send an email that might be relevant to sellers today. You know, and the messages are going to be so different. Wow, sellers, it's like, I saw in the news today, I think there's some houses in California, and some of you might be in California. I was looking at one of the articles recently, and I think there's a house that ended up going, it was listed for $1 million and went for like 1.6 million. That's awesome for a seller, right? But you don't want to be, you know, I'm not going to send that to my buyers because that's going to scare them. They're not going to even want to entertain, you know, looking at a house, right? So that's where segmenting is super important. The other thing too is think about what they want to know. I'm a homeowner. What got me off the fence was when my realtor called me up and says, Keith, we need to talk. And he explained to me what was going on and the fact that I could sell right now and it's going to be really favorable. Right? He pushed us off the fence. We were kind of on the fence, but his phone call and that information he shared with us pushed us off the fence and made us actually transact. And I think there was a comment here. I think what did Katrina? Thank you. Katrina says, my coach says to treat your buyers like you're the surgeon and they're having a major surgery in 6 months. You'll want to talk to them more than send a drip. Good for leads who don't respond though. 100% agree. Yeah, really, Katrina, I totally agree. You want to talk to them, have a conversation. So the first thing is, if you're going to drip on people or you're going to send them emails, make it valuable, you know? And if a lot of you are top producer customers, I know you are, leverage stuff like Market Snapshot. Send them market reports, send them just sold, just listed, price changes, educate them on what's going on in the marketplace around them that's relevant. The other one too with leads. So, you know, this actually, Katrina, thank you for your comment. It actually segmented into my next point. You have to be persistent with everybody. Don't give up. And this is really important on leads. I have, you know, done a lot of consulting with brokerages and teams and things like that around lead process, follow-up process. And you would be amazed at how many people give up after like 1 or 2 attempts. You have to be persistent, right? So a couple of stats that you should take away from this. 78% of successful connections are going to require between 6 to 12 touches. More calls, more touches, the more successful connections you have. 2% of appointments that lead to sales are actually made on the first contact. So basically, it says like the first contact is not the most important, right? It's that 5th, 6th, 12th, you know, whatever it is. 80% are made on the 5th through 12th contact. So a well-placed call, and you notice here, all of this data is around calls, right? And the stat that, you know, for salespeople, and we're, you know, at the end of the day, this is part of what we do, 44% of reps quit after the first no, right? Just because they're not ready now, to, you know, Katrina's point, they might be ready for surgery in 6 months, right? What's your plan? You know, are you giving up too soon? So don't give up, biggest thing. Another one, you know, I took this from a coach, a real estate coach a little while ago. And I remember, you know, one thing that stuck out to me was the rigor of holding yourself accountable to finding time. You know, the easy way for you to say is, Keith, I don't have time to do any of this. I don't have time to call 10 people and say hi today. I don't have time to follow up with my past clients. I don't have time for this. What you're basically saying is you don't have time to grow your business and make sure that it continues to, you know, achieve what you're trying to achieve, right? And I think the best way to do it is create and hold yourself accountable by blocking time twice a week, 3 times a week. You know, when we talk about this build, service, nurture, you know, how much time are you spending a week to build? You know, do you need to schedule Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 10 a.m. is my prospecting time, you know? And then it's like, you know, and then, you know, what that could be is just calling leads and calling expireds and FSBOs and whatever it is that you do. So think about a schedule, create a schedule that you hold yourself accountable to, because at the end of the day, this is on you, right? You're the one that has to do this. I can't do it for you. No one else can do it for you. You got to do it yourself, right? So how are you going to do it? How are you going to find that time? I know it's crazy busy right now and time is you know, minimal, but something to think about. And then leverage things like text, right? You know, put it in. It's like send out a bunch of text messages, you know, when you in that time, you know, if you have 1 hour of prospecting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or 2 hours, whatever it is that you determine that you're going to do, what are some goals during that prospecting time? I would say, okay, it's one thing to say you have 2 hours. It's another thing to say what you're going to do in those 2 hours. I might say something like, I'm going to make 20 phone calls, 20 text messages, 20 emails, just using that as an example, right? And also creating like some time sensitive ones, like even like a simple text message like this, hey, book my week, want to make your priority, interested in going to look at some homes, right? There's some things you can do. This is an example. This isn't like, any script that you can take. If you want to take it, go for it. But, just sharing, like, think about what you're going to do in those 2 hours and then do it. And you'll be amazed at what will come from that. And that kind of comes back to my, back to the very, to kind of wrap up on nurture. Have a plan. We talked a little bit about drip email. We've talked a little bit about, all these different things. At the end of the day, you're going to have different audiences in your database that need to have a plan. Here's an example of a past client one. Hey, the deal closes, give them a housewarming gift, ask them for a review, offer to help move or buy pizza. My realtor, I can share with you what again, come back into service. My realtor dropped off 35 moving boxes and has hired a cleaning company to come and clean my house that I'm moving out of. I was blown away. I was like, that is amazing. That's how he's helping me on moving day, right? What is it that you do? Check in 1 to 2 weeks. Hey, how's the new home? Send a market report every week, every quarter, sorry. And then, hey, twice a year, check in and say hi on their birthday, their home anniversary, ask them how the kids are doing. This is just an example. I'm not prescribing a prescription. This is just an example of a plan. And, this is just to get you thinking about, hey, do I have this right now? What is my plan? The minute that someone buys and sells, how do I stay in touch with them now for the next 5 to 7 years? That is what you need to think about. So have a plan, create a plan. We give people a lot of plans in our products, and we're here to help you. So we want to help you be successful. So I'm going to recap. We kind of went a little long here. We went to 38 minutes, but there was a lot of fast tips in here. So a couple of things I want to recap. Set weekly rituals to build, nurture, service your clients. Get in a cadence that you can execute. Don't create too many lofty goals for yourself. Like, don't sit down and be like, oh, okay, gosh, Keith, you hit home a couple of things for myself. I need, I'm going to reach out to 50 people a day for the next, month. That's great. And I think that would be amazing if you could do that. The problem is you probably can't do that, right? So set goals that you can achieve. The one thing I want to remind people, text, email, those are great forms. Just don't forget to pick up the phone and say hi. If my realtor never picked up the phone and said hi back in March, I'm not moving in a week, right? That phone call was the reason that got us off the fence. Use technology, right? Technology is here to help us be more efficient, but technology does not replace some of the foundational things. That this is still a relationship business. So don't let technology maintain relationships. It's you, and the technology can help you do it. Technology is an enabler, right? It's not a replacement. So think about that when you think about technology. And then the last one, this is really, really important. Celebrate it, right? If you commit to, like, you leave here today and you implement, a prospecting time block on your calendar for 1 hour every day, and you do that, celebrate that. At the end of the day, you're going to hold yourself accountable to the goals that you want to achieve. No one else is going to do that for you. That's the beautiful thing about real estate, right? And the profession that you're in is you get to create your goals. You get to create how many, all of that, how you do it, right? And a lot of this is, if you notice, a lot of stuff I shared today does not cost money. It's a return on time. It's not a return on investment, right? And, I think that is a really, really important thing to think about, and you should celebrate that, right? The more time you put into something, the more you're going to get out of it, and hold yourself accountable. So I hope, look, we went a little bit longer today. I hope that there was, like, everyone here took 1, 2, 3 things. Some of it's back to basics, and it's just a good reminder. I hope there's some stuff here that you can think about and apply in your business. If you do have questions about anything that we do at Top Producer, you can reach out to us. Here you can engage with us on Facebook, on live chat. We're here to help you. If you saw something today that interests you, please give us a call. And again, I hope everyone, thank you for spending time with us today. I hope you got value out of this 40-minute session. Sorry for running a little bit long. I think we marketed it as 30 minutes, but you know how it goes. And I'm gonna open up for any questions or comments, anything related to top producer, anything else, feel free. Thanks, Ali. Appreciate it. Oh, thanks, Heidi. Thank you. That's awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Katrina. Thanks for joining.